So here is a fun little secret. The AI industry would rather you did not think about too hard. The smartest models in the world are too expensive to actually use. Yes, really. Billions of dollars, oceans of electricity, data centers the size of small towns, all to build a genius that costs so much per question. The companies who built it immediately started looking for a cheaper genius. Welcome to model distillation, the art of teaching a small cheap model to impersonate a big expensive one. Or, as I like to call it, photocopying a brain, legally, mostly. Let us start with the problem. A giant AI model is like a 5-star restaurant with one chef and a 3-hour wait. The food is incredible. Nobody can afford to eat there every day. And your phone cannot even get a reservation. So the industry had an idea. And honestly, it is the oldest idea in the world. If the master is too expensive, train an apprentice. Here is how it works. And I promise, it is sneakier than it sounds. You take the big model, the teacher. You take a small model, the student, and you make the student copy the teacher's homework millions and millions of times. Now, you might be thinking, that is just cheating. Congratulations, you understand machine learning? But here is the part that is actually clever. The student does not just copy the teacher's final answers, it copies the teacher's doubts. Let me explain, because this is genuinely the beautiful bit. Ask a big model, is this a photo of a cat? It does not just say yes. It says 90% cat, 7% small dog, 3%, and I quote, possibly a very confident raccoon. Those little doubts are gold. Because that 7% whispering maybe dog, that is the teacher quietly saying, cats and small dogs look alike. That is knowledge. Wisdom even. Hiding inside a wrong answer. The researchers who discovered this called it dark knowledge, which is the most dramatic possible name for the model's vibes. So the student trains on the teacher's full report card, the answers, the doubts, the near misses, and something almost unfair happens. The student gets most of the teacher's brains, at a tiny fraction of the size. Not because the student is smart, because the teacher already did the hard part. The teacher spent millions of dollars learning what the world looks like. The student just borrows the summary. It is the difference between reading every book in the library and reading the notes of someone who did. One of those takes years, the other one fits on your phone. And that is exactly where distilled models live. Your phone, your laptop, your car. Every time an AI answers you instantly, on device, without calling home to a data center, you are probably talking to a student. A little photocopy of a genius, living in your pocket, pretending very convincingly to be the real thing. Now, let us talk about the drama. Because, oh, there is drama. Distillation works on your own models. It also works hypothetically on someone else's. There is the recipe. Allegedly, Step 1. Find a brilliant expensive model owned by a competitor. Step 2. Ask it a few million questions through its public interface. Step 3. Train your own model on its answers. Step 4. Act surprised when people notice your budget model has the exact same personality as their flagship. The industry has a word for this. The word is, hey, that is against our terms of service. Which is very funny, because entire frontier models were trained on, well, the internet, which was written by checks notes, everyone. So we now have trillion-dollar companies arguing about who copied whose homework, while standing on a mountain of everyone else's homework. I'm not saying anyone is right. I am saying the popcorn is delicious. But let us be fair for a second, because distillation is not theft with extra math. Done properly, with your own models, it is the single most important reason. AI got cheap enough to matter. The price of intelligence has been falling like a rock. The model that cost a fortune to run 2 years ago, something smaller matches it today for pennies. That collapse in price is distillation doing its job. Big teacher learns, small student ships. You get a smart assistant that does not require its own power plant. Of course, there is a catch. There is always a catch. A student can only be as wise as its teacher. On a good day, distill a model and you squeeze it, and something drips out. The edge cases, the rare knowledge, the weird, brilliant corners. The student nails the popular questions and quietly fumbles the strange ones. It is a greatest hits album. Sounds amazing until you ask for the deep cuts. And here is the darker version of that thought. If the teacher believes something wrong, the student believes it too. Errors do not get distilled out, they get inherited. Like a family recipe, where one ingredient has always been a mistake, and nobody remembers enough to question it. So, where does this all go? Here is the picture that should actually stop you for a second. The frontier models, the giants, fewer and fewer people talk to them directly. More and more, the giants have one job: teaching. Enormous minds, built at absurd cost, running day and night, not to answer your questions, to raise the small, fast, cheap models that do. An entire food chain of intelligence, giants teaching students, students teaching smaller students, knowledge flowing downhill, getting cheaper at every step. Some people look at that and see the democratization of intelligence. Some people see a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy, slowly losing the plot. Honestly, it is both. It has always been both. Because here is the punchline of the whole thing. Humanity has been running distillation for 100,000 years. Every teacher who simplified, every parent who summarized, every textbook that squeezed a century of genius into one chapter you skimmed before the exam. You have never met most of the brilliant minds your knowledge came from. You got the distilled version, and you turned out, well, mostly fine. So the machines are not doing anything new. They are just doing what we have always done, copying the homework of giants and calling it an education.